Welcome back, everybody, to the Me and Jesse podcast. I am Mark Pavlich, and across the way in the Grove, one of my favorite people of all time, the one and only Jesse Martineau.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to the Me and Jesse podcast. Mark, watch this. What is this? What am I?
Stop that.
I'm the Edmonton Oilers, dodging another bullet.
It's true, Jesse. It's true. But they're still going to win the Stanley Cup. As I said on this podcast.
They're lucky if they make it out of this round.
They
Mark,
just
they
stole
have shit the bed. Okay, game one. It's been 1 week. 1 week since you were saying how they were going to run through LA and LA was nobody.
No.
Everybody was saying it.
5-6 games.
But I called game one. I said game one is a question mark. I think LA might take game one. They come back and take it. I'm not talking let's just say they took it. They got outplayed. There's no question. I'm not arguing that. But
it doesn't matter. Yeah, you're right. That doesn't matter.
They're like the old Minnesota Wild where they just are opportunistic. And that's how they play. It's not fancy.
Opportunistic, yeah.
It's not pretty by any stretch of the imagination.
No, you're right.
And they go up 3-0. Yes, they choked last night, but they were up 3-0 against the Oilers. That the Oilers were this close to going home down 3-1.
But it didn't happen, my friend.
Yeah, but I'm saying
they stole Los Angeles' soul yesterday night. They ripped their soul out of their guts. And now I'm telling you, bro, it's going to go 6. Even if it goes 7, doesn't matter. They're going to come out of this, and you need tough matchups like this to get in the flow of the Stanley Cup.
This is the first one. This was supposed to be the easy one.
Well, what happened last year? They were supposed to go to Colorado. They went to Calgary. It was supposed to be go to 7 games. They flushed Calgary down the toilet in 4 or 5 games. They ran over Calgary last year, and it wasn't supposed to be that way. And if you look on paper, everybody said that was going to go 7 games, and it went 4 or 5 games, and everybody was in shock. And I was in shock because I'm oh my God, Calgary was tough last year, tough. And they ran through them. But this is what I'm talking about. Once you get past that first round momentum, but did you see the great video that came out today, Jesse? This video was fantastic. It was on TikTok. The Toronto Maple Leafs general manager, the kid, he's up in the press box in Tampa Bay, and he's yelling down because Toronto Maple Leaf fans are there. They're yelling at him, screaming at him, yelling at him. He can't take it no more. He starts yelling at them back, bro. He starts screaming at them. I'm laughing. I'm like, you want to talk about pressure teams that need to deliver this year, not next year, not the last 55 years they haven't delivered the Toronto Maple Leafs. They are on such edge right now. You can find the video of him. He is MF in his fans. He is MF in his fans. It is crazy. This is pressure. What I told before, though, I've said it on this podcast numerous times. Brendan Shanahan, Hockey Hall of Famer, Stanley Cup champion, all that kind of stuff. He's a great hockey player, but he's not a great hockey mind, Jesse. He's never has been. And he's part of that Toronto Maple Leaf, economy. And I've always said it, not a good hockey mind. Great hockey player.
I mean, it is a weird one. I don't know what to say about it. Again, Toronto's up 2-1. If they win tonight, it looks like they're going to make it through the first round. They got to win tonight, though. But still, it is one of those things.
They're losing tonight, Jesse. Bet it. Everybody at home, fantasy bettors, everybody bet it. The Toronto's losing tonight. They're losing tonight.
Well, back to the Oilers. You've calmed down a little bit since a few minutes ago.
Stanley Cup champs, buddy.
No, because I'm telling you right now, the way that they have, everyone was saying that this was not going to be a contest. This is the delusion of Oilers fans.
No, they always have a problem with that.
They underestimate every single team they play. The reason that they actually played so well against Calgary last year is because they were actually up for the game.
Correct.
But they don't do that anytime else. They don't do that with anyone else.
Well, they did it when they were down 3-0 yesterday. They did it. They went down 3-0. They came back and won the game. They definitely had to dig down and do it then.
My point being is that they're saying, you're down 3-0 facing 3-1 down in the series, and what's happening? Because something isn't right. If there's all that talk about running up 5, 6, 7, 8 goals on these guys every day, and it's not happening. Every game's been 1 goal, hasn't it?
Yes.
So what's going on then? What's the disconnect?
No. Listen, let's play this back when I'm right again. When I tell you that the Oilers are winning the Stanley Cup this year. This is the kind of stuff you got to go through. Don't forget, my friend, you have to win 16 games to win the Stanley Cup. How you win those 16 games is not relevant. It never has been and never will be. You watch some of the times when the Detroit Red Wings won those Stanley Cups back in the day, just the recent ones. You know what's crazy? You saw some of the ones that went 7 games, and the next one went 4 games, the next one went 6 games, the next one went 7, and you're like, how did this happen? I'm telling you, man, the Oilers, the depth of this team is insane. It is. You had 3 guys with over 100 points this year on one team. That's only happened how many times in NHL? They got decent goaltending, and they got some decent defense now too. So they have depth in the lines. I'm telling you right now, I'm going to the game on Tuesday. I'm gonna FaceTime you when I'm at the game when they win.
I say this: they're a good regular season team. They haven't proven themselves in the playoffs yet.
Oh, everybody's in that situation right now. Maple Leafs are in that situation. Oilers are in that situation. Listen, look at the Boston Bruins. I mean, broke the record of all-time wins this year, and they're winning that series, right? But they look a little more not the same. Like everybody thought they were so dominant, and they just don't look that dominant. They look good, but they don't. They were kind of looking shaky in some of the games, and I'm like, I don't know, man. But I think all the pressure in the world's on the Boston Bruins.
Well, I mean, yeah, there is. I think all the pressure in the world is on the Leafs, but
more than anybody.
I would say the Oilers might be number 2 for pressure. Really?
I think so. I think
even above Boston, because
I agree.
Obviously, in Boston, that's a different story. But in the hockey world, people are, Boston's up 3-1 in that series, and they dominated the last game. So
they did.
I think the pressure's off of them.
I do too.
I just, man, I don't know. Like, you're backing off on this, but I don't think anybody here in town thought that it would be coming back to Edmonton tied 2-2.
Listen, did you not see the shifty refereeing going on in the NHL?
Okay.
It's disgraceful. Disgraceful.
It doesn't matter. It happens every series, Mark.
It does.
In Calgary last year, we had a goal disallowed for that kick, and it would have been 3-2 still, and it would have been bad.
Correct.
It would have at least gone back to Calgary. But the point is that you're going to get that. But what do you do? And again, the best power play in NHL history, and it's okay in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Okay. That's my thing. Like I'm saying, like all the things that everyone was hyped about hasn't translated to the last 4 games.
But listen to me when I tell you this. You got to win 16 games to win the Stanley Cup, Jesse.
But you have to win the first 4.
Some of them are ugly, though. Some get ugly.
Yeah.
Ugly.
You can't go 8-8 though. Like, I mean, you can't lose more than 4 in a 7-game span, which is the hard part, really. 16 wins is great, but you can't. You have to win the race to 4 every single round. So
correct.
That's where we're at right now. I still think
Listen,
the Oilers
I'll be there
are going to
Tuesday.
win.
I'm going to FaceTime you on Tuesday when they destroy the Kings on Tuesday, and then they'll go back Thursday and win in Los Angeles. And like I said, they'll win. It'll be.
Okay, what are you going to do if the Oilers lose tomorrow night?
I make sure one of my friends takes me to Game 7 when they come back. That's exactly what I do. And I got an option for that. So I'm excited about that. And I'm looking forward to it. Hey, listen, it don't matter. This team's got the grit, man. They do. They got legit.
They do.
Oh,
I don't think they've got the grit.
They so do.
Because what you just said, a team with grit doesn't blame the refs. A team with grit goes out there and kicks more ass.
No, I don't. But I don't think they're the ones that are complaining about it as much as the fans are, and also the people.
And again, I saw the trip, which the guy, he got tripped though. There's no question. Yes, he did a pirouette after.
Oh,
no
Los Angeles should be in the MLS. They literally.
But again, we got to blame Sidney Crosby for that, because he was the first one to really start the head whip when he'd feel a stick near his visor.
Literally, the head whip on that was incredible. That was 10.
He jumped and spun.
That was a 10.
There's no
that was
question.
A 10.
I'm not arguing that. And the high stick one, man, I think people are seeing what they want. It was very close It wasn't like that. It felt like an arc, and man,
No, it was a graze. It was a graze.
Man,
okay?
even
So,
that,
graze.
like, it's like, okay, maybe. But again, to me in that one for sure, like, I hate the challenging the blue line call. Like,
So
you
much
score,
of it.
especially in overtime. I hate it. I hate
Did you
it
see?
so much.
Sometimes it's literally like 5 minutes later.
Oh, I know.
And it's like it's
so
like, oh,
dumb.
that was offside 5 minutes ago.
And the team's
so the
won.
whole
They've
play
like
gets
all won,
yeah.
and they're like cheering, and you're like, okay, this is ridiculous. Why wouldn't you challenge on every single overtime game?
Would.
There's no penalty. And so
well,
I'm thinking,
it
like,
costs you timeout, right? Doesn't cost you timeout.
yeah, but in
like,
overtime, it doesn't
Oh,
matter.
yeah, who cares?
Because this game's over. So my thing is like, okay, well, if you're gonna do that and you lose, maybe you start the next. Maybe you lose your timeout the next. I don't know what. Maybe you lose your challenge the next game. I don't know. But either way, like, if I was a coach right now, and it was an overtime goal, I'd be challenging everything. Every overtime. If my team got scored on an overtime, challenge.
Yeah,
Why?
you're right. You would have to.
Something.
I totally agree.
Like,
I totally agree.
I don't like that personally, but again, I understand why. Like, they're trying to take some of the, we have the technology to look, but again, it shows again, even with the high stick
look
thing.
at baseball. What they're doing in baseball right now. Jesus Christ, the base pad is larger, for Christ's sakes. I mean, like the base pad. Like, what are we doing here, right? Well, and then now you only get so many attempts to first base. Now you're on now the pitcher's on a shot clock, and I'm like, Jesus, man, this is bananas.
That is, and again, they're desperate because they need to appeal to a younger audience that doesn't want to sit there for 3.5 hours.
Yeah, because the demographics dying
162 times a year.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, we have to speed this up. It's true. Like, I do agree with that. I do think they need to do things to proactively speed that game up. But again, like, it does, there is ebbs and flows. And again, it's a learning process. And I think one thing the NFL, as much as we hate their officiating, but one thing that they've done okay is that, a year they'll try a review of some kind, and then they're like, that was a gong show, we're taking that back out.
They'll take it out.
Yeah, and I would like to see the NHL do a little more of that pivoting.
Well,
like, hey, let's try it
the
for a year.
problem with NHL is once it's in for life. It doesn't ever.
Seems that way.
Most of the time, right?
Yeah, but they did change things that we never thought they would. We never thought they'd take out the red line, and they did that, and that kind of stuff, and how many people really thought they were going to uphold all the holding and stuff calls when they brought that in 2006 or whatever that was, and you're like, okay, well, they did it, but I really do believe that the leagues need to do more to to keep the game moving in a way that the fans.
That's the big thing now.
I think
like
so. I think
it's got to go like this,
one thing that's been awesome is live golf.
Oh, did you see the turnout in Australia? Oh my God.
Something's clicked.
Yeah. They brought their boy home, top 3 golfer in the world, back to Australia. They showed up in Australia for this guy, man. I mean, it was nuts. I sent you the video of them with the after party.
Yeah.
It looked like fucking Coachella.
Yeah.
I mean, it was bananas. It literally looked like Coachella, the after party for Live Golf.
Man, again, this is one of those things. It's one of those things where you're finally learning.
Live's catching. It's catching. Yeah. And they got to keep on this train, They got to keep on this train. I mean, I was watching the USFL the other day, and there was literally 4 people in the stands. There's more people at CFL games than there are at the USFL.
Sucks, man. There are so many sports, and that's the hard part.
Correct.
And they try to all say that they're professional, and it's hard when there's something so much better down the road. But I do think, it's one of those things where sometimes the whole idea of fake it till you make it is a thing.
Does it pertain?
But it's almost like, let's take the Canadian Basketball League.
Yeah, fantastic.
Okay, it's doing what it does. And that's it. We're not trying to be better than the NBA.
Correct.
We're trying to be an alternative when you're done watching the NBA, and now you get to watch summer ball with guys that have a chance to be in the NBA, and let's pitch it like that.
And they're not conflicting with the NBA schedule.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're not trying.
USFL's doing the same thing, though.
Yeah.
USFL's doing the same thing.
It's just unfortunate that, I think for that, like, you got college football that,
that's starting
that people live and die for more than
do they ever
than that. So you're like, okay, is it really at the time of that thing? I would love to see the XFL idea keep going and something like that actually spawn out of there. But again, we don't know. Hey, we'll be right back on the Me and Jesse podcast with our special guest, Josh Gross.
Get ready. It's time for the Me and Jesse podcast with Mark Pavlich and Jesse Martineau. Get ready. It's time for the Me and Jesse podcast with Mark Pavlich and Jesse Martineau.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Me and Jesse podcast. I am Mark Pavlich, away in the Grove, the big, sexy Jesse Martineau, and our special guest today, everybody. And I'm very happy to announce MMA aficionado, journalist, okay, everybody, published author. I could go on and on and on. The man that has almost been in the MMA business longer than me. Close. The one and only Josh Gross.
Welcome to the show.
Gentlemen, how are you?
Oh, we're
yeah,
doing
thank you,
good.
Jesse. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you on. Like, you know, when you talk about MMA, like, again, out of this group here, I am by far the least expertise. So I'm going to be picking your brain like crazy tonight because the knowledge that Josh has, everybody, is astounding. And you know, so what I saw too, that the editor of Sherdog, how does that work? You have so many different irons in the fire, it seems, but how do they all play out?
Yeah, well, the Sherdog work is really kind of limited. It's editor at large, so I'm working on select pieces, writing here and there. Definitely not in their day-to-day. I was executive editor of Sherdog way back when, at the time Mark was talking about, covering MFCs and all that stuff. So there's no doubt about it. I think, you know, for me, I'm wearing a hat. I know you guys were very kind. You called me multi-talented, which I gave you a little nudge for, but yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I would never say that about myself, but I'm glad other people would. So thank you so much.
Well, you know, it's funny, Josh, because that's the problem with people. You would almost borderline be Canadian because you have that mentality. Like you're like, listen, I don't know if people understand this, but I don't say anything that's not true. So when I think of somebody, I don't just go, oh, I'm trying to sell the podcast. We're having Josh Gross on. So all you MMA nerds tune in because he's going to tell you everything. And he's going to tell you the truth, though. This is the thing that they don't understand is the truth. And that's what I look at you as. I look at you as the truth. So, and I don't have to say that. I'm not really in the MMA business anymore. There's nobody that can touch me. I don't have to have a press pass for anything. I never want a press pass for anything. The farthest I want to go is to the driving range after the podcast and then maybe hit a few balls. Okay. Yeah. But what I do notice is you were in a time in MMA when I was when we started. And the part that always disturbed me was I was around when you got banned from the UFC.
Right.
And I remember turning to my wife and telling her, this will be the start of the demise of the UFC, in the fact that it won't be like we can all pretend and Dana White can tell everybody, and I have no problem with Dana White, but he can tell everybody he's big and he's big and he's big. But when you say NFL, you say NBA, you say Major League Baseball, you say all these things, they're still way down here. They're still way down here when it comes to that type of stuff, when you start banning real journalists.
Yeah, look, and that was 2005 when I was banned, Mark. Hey, can you believe 2005, which is just silly to say. And I'm hardly the only one. Wow. There has been lots of media who have suffered unfairly because of, I assume, whatever they thought was best for their business. And look, however they got there, their business is massive and they're now worth billions of dollars and they're now in the same company as WWE and all of that. But I do think that they've gone about it in ways that weren't necessary. And certainly in regards to something I care deeply about, which is the mixed martial arts media and just media in general and journalism. I think once you start down the path that they did, again, not just with me, but with others, that's a path you cannot get off of because you've now sealed kind of like your MO, like, oh, we don't like you, you're banned. And believe me, that seeps into the culture of not only the people working around the sport, but in the journalism space, especially. It is absolutely something I keep hearing to this day. Oh, Dana's going to ban you, like it's some weird thing hanging over people's heads, and it absolutely should not be. But unfortunately, that's just the reality. And like, I appreciate your words about what I mean and what I sort of represent in terms of truth telling. The truth is that they've gone about their business and it's not really affected them. It's not hurt them. We've seen countless times where stories that would have dinged other properties, other brands, other executives, like Teflon, just rolls off. I think there's a few reasons for that. I think one is the way that they've conducted their business over the years, just in terms of ruthless, take no prisoners kind of thing. But also, I think there is something to say about combat sports and whether a bar exists in combat sports for the kinds of people that are operating in combat sports. That's not to paint everybody with a broad brush that it's just an industry full of terrible people, because that's not true. Correct. And it's not even close to true. But there are certainly things in documented history about how combat sports work, thinking about boxing, seeping into mixed martial arts, about the kinds of peoples that are involved, the kinds of tacks that they'll take, the kinds of moves that they'll make that would not fly in other industries. So there's a lot at play here. Nonetheless, I still exist. Other people who've been banned still exist. I certainly don't cover MMA the way I used to, and I think a lot of it has to do with, in the end, the reality of trying to make a buck in the space, finding it difficult to get work at times. But at the same, I know my situation is a little bit unique in that I worked at the biggest places in sports covering mixed martial arts. And so once you've sort of done that, where do you go? I'm still in it, Jesse. You asked about the editor job at SureDog. That's me still trying to be in the space. That's me still trying to say, I have a voice that has some resonance, that matters to people. And beyond just my voice or my opinion or whatever the hell I think, it's you have to see things and call them for what they are, because you're doing reporting and you know what they are. It's not just what someone says to you on the record. It's what they're doing when it's off the record or when things aren't with the cameras turned on. So, that's the kind of stuff that really drove me. We did a hell of a lot of journalism while I was executive editor there. And also that continued when I went to Sports Illustrated and ESPN and The Guardian. And, lastly was The Athletic, was the last major place that I worked at covering the sport. So, people have asked me, do you have any regrets about things the way they worked out? Dana White offered me a job to run UFC.com in 2005, and I told him I wasn't interested. I wanted to do journalism. And it just happened that he offered me the job 2 weeks after he was banned. He banned me and everybody else. So it's like, if you have any kind of soul, I think, if you have any kind of self-respect, you're going to look at an offer like that and say, well, what's the deal here? Why are I can't get a credential to your card, but you're going to hire me to run UFC.com. So no, thank you. And I've accepted my choices and lived with them and made my way to this day. And I've struggled for sure at certain points. But I know who I am, and I am absolutely comfortable with that.
But doesn't that sicken you though? And I'm going to use the word sicken you, when the face of MMA is Dana White and the face of boxing this weekend, that they want to make the face of boxing. Okay. They want to make Tank the face of boxing, and they want to make Dana White the face of MMA, and they both beat up girls. So this is a fact. I don't care. It's on video. I'm not make-believing. This is not a make-believe thing. I've seen things with Tank. I can't even retweet anything with him in it. It makes me sick to my stomach. And I can't even for our own social media stuff now, on our own stuff for our podcast, I can't kind of retweet stuff too much about the UFC, because I think then I'm endorsing a guy that smacks around chicks. And I struggle with that immensely. And you know what's funny? No one's going to tell me. Dana White could come to the front of my house right now, right? And he wouldn't knock on the door. Do you understand, Josh? Because at 55 years old, people know still to this day, sure, I owned an MMA show, and sure, I do these other things, but I can still do this, okay? So people have to understand, and I'm not a violent person, but I do get violent when I do talk about people beating up women. I have a real issue with that. And see, the great part about it is, I'm not one of those guys that goes, hey, I got a problem with beating up women, then I go beat up women, right? Because that's what Dana did, and that's what Tank's doing, and they have video of them doing it. And these are the faces of these organizations. And why didn't we not hear female MMA fighters anywhere talk bad about Dana? We heard maybe a handful of people in general talk about it. In the media, Very few people talked about it. Tell me why that is.
Well, I think it goes back to what I was saying a couple of minutes ago, that the bar in combat sports for acceptable societal behavior almost doesn't exist. So where you're thinking about life as an everyday person living, going shopping, groceries, these are things that should be abhorrent. In combat sports, I think we've come to accept things that we, again, would not accept in other areas of our lives. And I think, you know, whether Tank Davis is the face of boxing or not, if people want to talk to him about that way, you know, they're able to, and they're able to look past all the negative things if they want to, and you're sort of suspending disbelief because you don't really care and you like the violence, or you appreciate his sporting ability, or you just want to be entertained and you really only care about one thing, and that's yourself. And I guess the same would go for Dana White if you took real issue, as people were right to do, regarding with the incident and his wife in Mexico. Certainly, I saw the reaction to a lot of that. Initially, it was a lot of forgiveness, a lot of "he's my friend," "oh, it's not a big deal." And why is that? Because people generally cower to power, right? They see power, or they see something like, oh, maybe one day I'll get on Dana White's good side, or maybe one day, whatever it is, this person can help me out, or I don't want to get on the bad side. I've heard the stories. He bans people. I don't want to say anything. Right. I don't want to say anything that sets him off. And I think that's just an instinct. It's like, you know, people are all built differently, but there are strains of people that are consistent. And if you have as I think, Mark, it sounds like you do, and I certainly do, I have no problem questioning authority, or looking at people in power and saying, well, why is it this way? Why are you not doing it this way?
Josh, I would do a show. I would do a show, Josh, and we would have a post press conference, and a reporter would say, Mark, what do you think of the show tonight? And I said, it's dog shit. It was terrible. I'm going to strangle the heavyweight division. They're terrible. They looked horrendous. I apologize. I will go shovel snow on your driveway if you would like me to reimburse you for the expensive tickets that you pay for my organization. People thought I was nuts, but I was like, no, I thought it was terrible. I don't even know how to apologize to you enough. Have you ever heard Dana White say that? And I've watched some dog shit cards, and he rarely ever would ever bring that up. He would find some lining in the thing. And I used to think to myself, I just watched the card. It was horrible. Like, why are you saying it was good? And it's the same thing. And I said, I would never be like that. I would never tell people I'm going to be doing this. And people would say, Mark, you should do that more. You should like put like stuff that's not true out there. And I go, no, I'm not going to do that. Then I'll look like an idiot. But apparently in the MMA world, that's what they do. They say certain things that never happen, but it gets them the hype. And then they just go, oh, well, that got canceled, and then we'll do something else here, you know?
Look, I think, again, combat sports, it's a promotion business. And the promotion business, you know, you're event to event, you're selling tickets. I'm not condoning anything promoters would say that would be untruthful or any, but I mean, that comes really par with the course. There are fewer promoters that have existed in time in that world, in that space, that have been completely honest about everything about their business than have not been. And, you know, and I don't, you know, Mark, it's not like you were spilling beans about contract talks with this fighter, or this fighter I know is on drugs, but I may or may not promote him. That's different than saying my card sucked. So, you know, there are stratospheres of being totally transparent. And then this is how I feel about it. I'm going to let you know what I think about it. And honestly, I wouldn't expect a fight promoter to tell you the stuff sucked, because that's not the business. You're basically a 3-ring circus. You're basically, you know, you got to get the people in the building. You got to sell the tickets. If it's not the best fight of all time, you're still probably calling it the best fight of all time. I take issue across the industry, Mark. And you know what? I think Maximum Fighting did this, where your champions were world champions. Well, your champions aren't world champions.
They're not.
There are no world champions in mixed martial arts. They're all promotional champions.
Funny you said that, because I didn't ever call them that. I called them MFC champions, but our announcers called them world champion. The ring announcer called them world champion. And I always had a little kind of thing, like I was getting a cringe when I heard it, because I was like, they're not world champions. They're really good fighters. They're really good fighters.
That has to happen next, because boxing does it. Like, so, I mean, although there's a bunch of different belts, but do you think MMA has to have that to actually put it in it? Or is it just promotion? It's just entertainment this way, and that's all that matters?
I don't know if it has to have it, because obviously the industry is worth billions of dollars now, and it's playing on levels that it never did before. And clearly it has the backing of companies like Endeavor, which are just powerhouses. So Does it need it? Probably not, but would it be better off with it? Absolutely, because I think you need to have the best fighters in the world to fight the best fighters in the world if you want to have a sport. And one of my big complaints about MMA and why it's less and less interesting to me as time goes on, although I still will watch big fights and I still will definitely think about them, is that my main interest getting into it, I was not a pro wrestling fan. I know there are a lot of pro wrestling converts who come into mixed martial arts and sort of have a similar idea. They cheer on promotions sometimes more than fighters. They worry about some behind the scenes business like pro wrestling fans would. I'm a sports guy, like 100% through. I want to know who the best in the world is.
Yes.
And, look, Maximum Fighting put through some great prospects that rose to the level that maybe if they reached their height, they could have gotten that good, right? But the problem is that now you have everybody claiming they're the world champion, and there is no world champion. And I don't want to get hung up on this, but it's just an example of the fight promotion business sort of eating itself, not really thinking bigger picture, I don't think, because... look, remember when Dana White and Lorenzo Fertitta first bought the UFC? Their first thing was, we're going to co-promote. We're going to make the biggest fights in the world because that's where the money is. That's where the interest is. Well, they realized that maybe that wasn't the money and the interest because they didn't control the best fighters in the world. What they could control was the narrative around their business, the branding around their business, and they created a business that basically emulated the WWE. And like I said, from a financial standpoint, it's done wonders. But if you like sports, it kind of gets less and less attractive over time. They can still promote great fights that I can look at and say, yeah, those are probably the two best guys in the world or two best ladies in the world, but they're fewer and far between than they used to be. And what you're doing when you're saying that the best fights are always in the UFC or the world champions are here is you're discounting some amazing athletes all over the world. And the thing I always appreciate about MMA, a lot like golf, Mark, it's an individual sport.
Correct.
You can come from nowhere. You can not
I
be
totally
known
agree.
yesterday, and you can become the best tomorrow if that opportunity exists. And I don't think it exists like it should in MMA. So that's one of my big gripes, and that's one of the things I sort of hold on to is why it's less interesting to me than it could be. And so I always favor the more open world scenario. I'm invested, and it's not my money. So that's my perspective.
I did love the WWE, and I watched it religiously when it was WWF and stuff. But, I don't watch UFC for that because there isn't any characters anymore. It seems like that, they wait for Connor to get healthy again to put him out parade him around on a TV show or something. But, if that is the thing, if that's the whole idea behind it is to make another WWE with those characters, who's next? Who's actually coming up that can be someone as entertaining outside of the octagon than inside?
Yeah, there's 2 points to that question. One, extremely difficult because the fights aren't fixed, right? So that was Vince McMahon's big thing about UFC and why he never took it seriously is, well, we can't control the storytelling. We don't know who's going to win the fight, and so we can't really build up personalities or characters in the way you say it. But think about the great sports athletes along the way, or just the great fighters along the way, right? The ones you really remember were great characters, but they're unique and they're far and few between. Sometimes you remember fighters just because they were extremely talented and better than everybody else. But the ones you really hold on to are the ones that were charismatic as well. They gave you a reason to care about them. They weren't playing someone else. They were themselves, and that was enough. And so I think that's what it is. I don't think that's a huge impediment for the UFC because when they were wanted to be like the WWE, it was not for the front-facing characters, except maybe Dana White, who was so ubiquitous, right? He was everywhere. Right. You could control Dana. People understood Dana. The branding was simple. But with the fighters, it wasn't so simple, except in the back room, the contracts, how you control them, that was all WWE. That's where they really learned the value in that kind of business model. And the control that it gave them over the industry over the long run was that kind of lessons they learned from pro wrestling.
Do you think them not having some sort of structure in place with the contracts, because we hear so much about fighter pay and all that kind of stuff now, do you think it will catch up to them one day, or is it so big now that it doesn't matter? And someone just
I don't know. We'll see where this antitrust lawsuit ends up eventually, whenever some decisions are made there. That's a real thing. That's in federal court in front of federal judges. I also think that they've made changes to their contracts because of that lawsuit. There are now sunset periods. They can't hold on to champions in perpetuity. So there have been some shifts. I think fans don't care. for the most part. Most fighters are just happy for the opportunity. They're so hungry. They see what, their eyes see what the potential, and sometimes that's enough for them to accept eating meager, right?
Yeah.
You see a great meal on a plate there, someday you're going to get that meal, maybe, hopefully, and that alone is incentive enough for fighters not to combine. And look, it is cutthroat. It is a very difficult space. I think the best example for what individual athletes in mixed martial arts could hope for is a very similar to a PGA Tour scenario where the athletes are independent contractors.
My next question: why hasn't Live MMA started? We brought this up on the show millions of times. They're the only ones, and I'm past the Saudi Arabia thing. I'm past the Saudi Arabia. I'm past it. But if Live MMA comes out and says to the top 10 guys in MMA, let your contract run out. You're not going to re-sign. We'll give you X amount of dollars to join us, and then we'll pay you when you get here. They could be the only ones to do it. The same way they did it with golf, but it cost them way less money. Way less.
Well, they haven't done it with golf yet, Mark. They don't run golf. I mean,
I know that.
Isn't close to running golf. They're like trying to be an alternative, and we've seen many try to be alternatives in mixed martial arts,
but not in golf. Though. Not in golf.
No, but and we're seeing it in golf. I don't watch Live. I know you guys are big Live fans. I don't watch it. I love the PGA Tour.
So do I. I love the PGA Tour too. But you know what's funny? I've been a golfer my whole entire life, and I cannot believe that it took this to wake up the PGA Tour, for them to finally start paying attention to their social media, for them to start tweeting, Instagramming, Facebooking, you name it. They did nothing before. They were TikTok. They were horrible. They were absolutely terrible. And I started to watch now. All of a sudden, the prize money in the PGA has gone up. Why didn't it go up before that? Because now we have competition. I could give a rat's ass about Live Golf. I like golfers. So if you tell me, I watched the PGA, the team thing. I watched the team thing this weekend, and I watched golfers. And if I watched the after party of Live Golf, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. It looked like Coachella. But would I actually be okay going? No, probably not. It's not my style. Like I've been to the U.S. Open in golf, and I've gone to the waste management, and I probably will never go back to the waste management ever again. And I'll go back, because it was a gong show. It was like girls taking their tops off, people were sliding around. It was nuts. And I'm a traditional golfer. Okay, so I don't want music playing when I play golf. I don't want none of that stuff.
Yeah. Look, I'm with you on the golf thing. When I say I'm a PGA Tour fan, I want to watch the best golfers. It was awesome in the Masters to see all those, the Live and the PGA guys.
I thought it was sad.
Compete against one another.
I thought it was sad. Did you think it was sad? When I saw Koepka, you knew he knew he made a mistake, and he made all this money, and he looked sad. And Koepka looked sad to me when he was playing in the Masters, and then he not choked, but he didn't play as well on the fourth, the final round. And
you actually, Mark, you actually nailed it, because I watched when you asked me to come on. I think that week you just talked about Live, right?
Yeah.
At least I checked out an episode or two, and you guys were talking about it, and you said, I guarantee Koepka runs away with it. That's what you said.
Yeah. Oh, I thought but almost it almost happened.
He almost did, right? But here's the thing, and this is why I think Live is a negative. And if anybody's watching this for the MMA discussion, we'll get back to MMA in a second. But the competitive chops on Live are not what they were on the PGA Tour. So why do you think that he folded on the weekend?
Yeah.
Oh,
he hasn't been playing 4-round events. On the fourth rounds, he folds, and that's like the most pressure. And he hasn't had that in a while.
It's true.
There's no pressure.
That stuff really matters.
In all fairness, though, the Masters is the first tour back after a break.
Yeah.
And so they're already doing the same. I would imagine they would be doing the same lead up to the Masters that they would be Live or not, wouldn't they?
No, not this time. No.
No, I mean the player. The player himself is prepping for the Masters the same way he always has been, because there's usually not an event before the Masters so much that they would be they'd take a break or lead up to the Masters.
Lots of guys do. Yeah.
I don't know. And you said it was an individual sport too. So
yeah, they're still competing regularly against the best in the world in a non-team format. I see. When you're out there for yourself, grinding for yourself nonstop, that's really the key ingredient, I think, and the differentiator in terms of like what the leagues are about. That's how I see it.
Right.
Now we've seen lots of alternatives to the UFC, if I can bring it back to that.
Yeah.
Many of them have folded, come and gone, spent a lot of money. Mark Cuban and Randy Couture threatened and tried to threatens the wrong word, legally in lawsuits went after the UFC trying to make a Fedor fight happen. We've seen lots of these examples. Look, Bellator's a fine business. Okay, Bellator runs a good business. It's not the UFC. But the problem is that the perception of the UFC among most watchers of that, especially now casually, especially since the pandemic, is that this is where it's at. This is all you got to watch. So someone in saying, hey, you know, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, like get out of your contract. First of all, they're going to be sued like beyond belief. These are the most litigious people in sports, almost like the UFC and Endeavor. So even if you're deep pocketed like the Saudis or whoever it is, I think it's different because the PGA Tour players do not have contracts with the PGA Tour like the UFC athletes have contracts with the UFC. So it's a different scenario. The fighters would be extremely better off if they had the financial situation and the ability to handle their careers like actual true independent contractors, like players on the PGA Tour do. Mixed martial artists don't have that opportunity. So there's a lot of reasons why it hasn't happened. Are there factors for change? Could things happen? Absolutely. The sport's basically 30 years old as we know it. That's still young, still nothing. Even though it seems like there's a vice grip on the industry from the top down, nothing is written in stone. And, you know, we'll see. We'll see if this lawsuit ends up meaning anything.
I'm shocked, Josh. I'm shocked, Josh, because I've been out of the MMA business for 10 years. Yeah. And I literally thought, and I'm not even joking, that when the second Dana White cracked his wife multiple times, that my phone was going to ring. I swear to God. You know how many people messaged me? They said, Mark, did the UFC call you yet? And I'm like, no, why would they call me? I'm on like the 14th hole somewhere, you know? And they're like, no, because because you would be the only one that could do it correctly and I started to laugh but I received about 20, 30 people say that to me. It was bizarre. But what I tried to explain to them is that if I was involved, there would have to be a code of conduct or I'm not doing it.
That's followed because I think they have one. Then just no.
I mean, I'm talking a real code of conduct. I'm talking an NHL, NFL, Major League Baseball. I don't want to hear you MFing everybody. I don't want to hear profanity when you're doing an interview. Every word is F this, F that, like it is in the MMA world. And I want to see a Nike swoosh in the middle of the octagon. And I want that done. Wow. I will fly immediately to Phil Knight. I will sit down with him and explain to him exactly how this is going to run forward. And there's going to be Nike shit everywhere, all over the octagon, everywhere. And
I think John Jones ruined that one.
Yeah,
I do.
He did. But what I'm saying is, that there's no real code of conduct. There's no repercussion for anything. And that's why you won't see a Rolex logo. You won't see a real Nike logo involved. And you won't see Cadillac or Mercedes.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't.
Yeah, and look, we'll see. The audience still skews. It's not the boxing audience, right? The boxing audience always had more income, disposable income. Right. It always felt like richer audiences, bigger cards, larger gates, that kind of thing. And so we'll see as the MMA audience ages. We'll see if the advertisers change their opinions of it. But it goes back to what I started with, was that there's really no, bar in terms of conduct or expectations of people comporting themselves in the ways that sort of line up with how people in society should be operating in the combat sports space. I mean, Don King, his manslaughter charge exists. We know what happened. He killed somebody. But, again, the guy went on to ruin lots of careers for boxers because he just, he did. He also made a lot of people a lot of money. That's really the name of the game. And I think in this space is, do you make the buck or not? Do you make money? Do you draw eyeballs? Are you a needle mover, right? That's kind of like the de facto, like, are you a character? Do you move the needle is really where that comes down to. And, those fighters exist. Nate Diaz is one of those fighters. And, and he just signed a major fight with Jake Paul because he's one of those fighters. And the UFC wanted to sign him for millions of dollars because he's one of those fighters. And then he goes off in this weekend and does something really stupid and chokes out a guy on Bourbon Street. So,
that's crazy.
We're dealing, and Mark, look, man, you've dealt with a lot of fighters.
Yeah.
So you get the the thinking sometimes, or maybe the lack thereof.
You know, it's funny though. I was weird. I should have never been in the MMA business because I have a father who is in the Hockey Hall of Fame. I have an uncle who won 4 Stanley Cups. Both are still alive. My father's 90. My uncle's 95. He was on the Detroit Red Wings, won 4 Stanley Cups. Amazing. They were my board of directors. So I don't care. Like, I know Dana White doesn't answer to anybody, or he just thinks he can talk the way he wants to talk. If I said anything, you realize when I was in the MMA business, I didn't swear once in any interview or any time, not one time. I never used profanity. I treated it. My dad would yell at me and say, "You treat it like a sports organization, Mark. Don't treat it like that idiot Dana White. Don't be like that." My Uncle Marty would say the same thing. He'd say, "Mark, don't be like that. That's not what people want. Treat it like you're own an NHL hockey team. You ever see an NHL hockey owner talk like that?" I go, "No, I never have." So that's how I treated the MFC. Yeah, I was mad. I got aggressive. I did all those things. I had to do something to bring attention to ourselves. But the face of MMA is the John Joneses of the world, the Dana Whites of the world. These guys that are just so, like, the stuff they're doing is just mind-boggling to me now watching it, not being in the MMA business for 10 years.
I think I'll try to paraphrase what I think what Josh is saying is that the part of America doesn't care.
Yeah.
Make it the whole world, my man. Don't just do us in America. Make it the whole world.
They don't
care. The global business.
They don't care.
I agree.
They don't. And again, like in the world that we live in, you'd think, hey, that would end most things, and we've seen people go down for seemingly less. But in this organization, it doesn't matter, and the fan base doesn't care. They just want to come back and watch more of it. And so, again, there is kind of a whatever, water under the bridge. We'll just keep going forward. And again, like, I'm not saying it's right, but I'm assuming that's how it is.
Yeah. I think there's definitely a lot of move on. I forgot what happened 5 seconds ago. I mean, there's absolutely a lot of that. Even great stuff. Even like an incredible title fight. Like, we move on 48 hours later. It's like it didn't exist.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah.
I saw all the headlines like at the next day, like, oh, fighter goes down from phantom ghost punch, and you're like, okay, well, anyone that knows what happened. But what was your take on that fight? And I saw you were tweeting some stuff about it as well.
The Davis Garcia fight. Yeah. Mark, I look, I'm with you on your feelings, and I understand them. And I'm a pretty forthright guy. I cast them aside on Saturday night. I wanted to watch that fight. I had no reason to watch that fight except I was curious. No one was paying me to cover that fight. I went to a sports bar to watch that fight. The place was packed. The place was packed.
Yeah.
So,
and I wouldn't, and you couldn't pay me to step in a sports bar because everybody and their mother will come to me because where I live, and they'll ask me, who's gonna. I want to watch fights by myself.
Yeah.
Boxing, MMA. I want to sit by myself. I won't even answer my phone because people are calling me. If I go to a sports bar, the last time I went was maybe 10 years ago, and it was insanity. People thought like I got this crystal ball of like, and I was never great at picking fights anyway, so I don't know why people are asking me. But I thought, wow, this is really bizarre. You know, like people are asking me.
You're Mark Pavlich. I mean, come on. You're up there in Edmonton. You're the fight guy.
I was in Las Vegas. It was the same thing. You know what's crazy? When I was in Las Vegas, it was the same thing. People are like, you know what's funny? And that made sense when people were asking me, Mark, would you come out of retirement for MMA to run the UFC? And I said there would be a big problem with that delivery because I would want too many things for them to say yes.
Well, you got tons of money.
And I would bring Jesse with me. Jesse would have to be with me all the time. My wife would have to be with me all the time. You know, so there would be like a gang of people.
Mark, would you credential me, Mark?
Of course.
100%.
Yeah, because I want
the one thing.
Because I want
you're not getting a job. You're not getting a job.
No, but I want honesty. If something sucks. Listen, I have friends that are great chefs. I go to their restaurant, and 98% of the time, the food's fantastic. But the 2%, something happened. So they'll come to me and they'll say, Mark, what did you think of the dinner tonight? And I don't say anything. I go silent. And because I remember what my mom taught me. Mark, if you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all. So I sat there in silence. And they know silence means it sucked.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, so
okay, well, let's go back to Josh
It's good to know where people stand. But I will say that the heir apparent to Dana White is Hunter Campbell, and
I agree.
He will be running the UFC.
I agree. But they should have did that when he cracked his wife. They should. Ownership should have did it right away. They would have looked so strong by doing that.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, look, Ari Emanuel was his agent, his talent agent forever, and now they own their business. And the strange fellows add up to the point where you may even want to make a decision, but you don't know how because you're so entangled. And that's just the reality of their business.
Yeah.
Sure. So the take on the fight on the weekend?
Yeah, look, Gervonta Davis is a beast, and Ryan Garcia looked a little bit green. Props to him for taking that fight, absolutely, for stepping in and for doing what was necessary. I think boxers show their power when they come together and make great fights. People want to watch them, and Gervonta Davis is someone that my dream matchup is to watch him fight Devin Haney. I think Devin Haney beats him up every day of the week.
Me too.
So that. With Gervonta is extremely dangerous. So saying that, adds a lot of intrigue for me. But I think, the whole boxing's dead narrative is so dumb and played out and doesn't exist. It's not real. Just look at how the space operates and the amount of money that they're generating and the number of media partners they have that are constantly making money on fights. And it doesn't take a lot for, it doesn't take a lot for fighters to emerge and all of a sudden grab public attention. And there are some really good boxers. I've had a chance to cover Gervonta and both Garcia out here in Los Angeles as they were coming up. So, there's definitely still something in boxing. To me, it's a different viewing. Like a championship boxing bout is still a different viewing experience than a championship MMA fight.
I agree.
I think so.
A little bit more gravitas, a little bit more weighty.
I totally agree.
I think the boxing match, because it plays out over 12 rounds, it allows a story to unfold in a way that is more difficult in boxing and more difficult in mixed martial arts. The great MMA fights are fights that you see the story unfolding during the fight, and you can see ebbs and flows in moments like that, and they do happen, and they're absolutely incredible when they do. But I just think they're harder to see, they're harder to come by than what you get in boxing. And clearly, the fight on Saturday was not a great fight. Gervonta, had his way, but he
was up 3 rounds. Was it? Yeah.
No, 7 rounds.
It went in the 7th. It was stopped in the 7th. But I think after the second after Garcia was dropped, he didn't have anything left. He didn't know how to approach the fight and was totally confused.
Well, we're running out of time, but I want to quickly touch on the LA Football Club, because Mark and I love football, and you're involved with it down there. How has it been perceived lately, especially in the LA area, which has had a tumultuous past with sports? Maybe how is
well, hold on, Jesse, what do you mean LA's had a tumultuous past with sports?
Come on, NFL teams the wazoo down there,
NFL can go to hell. Yep.
So what's going on with down there? It is the Galaxy, right? Like are they still called the LA Galaxy?
Oh, wow. Look at you. You don't know anything. That's
he does
awesome.
know. He does know.
No, I heard you guys talking about like CONCACAF, and Mark's like, I don't know anything about CONCACAF. I don't want to talk about CONCACAF.
Well, I'm Croatian, right? So, of course, I want to talk about that type of soccer.
Well, you should listen here.
Yeah.
You should listen here. So there are 2 teams in Los Angeles now, Jesse. The LA Galaxy, which was like one of the founding clubs of the MLS, came in 1996.
Yeah.
And then in 2018, an expansion team came in called the Los Angeles Football Club. So 2 totally separate entities, separate clubs. The LAFC built a stadium where the old sports arena used to be, right next to the Coliseum in Los Angeles, right? So it's basically like the heart of LA, which is how they've built their property and built themselves up within the community. And the Galaxy has a venue that's like more of the suburbs in Carson. It's not even Los Angeles City. So they've had to sort of now, they're reeling a little bit because LAFC has had success from the get-go. Last year, they won the championship in the league, both in the regular season, which is how they do in the Premier League, where it's like the table throughout the season, and then the winner of that gets a trophy. So MLS has that. It's called the Supporters Shield. LAFC won that, and then they have the playoffs because it's American sports, and you got to have playoffs, right? Or Canadian, too, with the hockey.
Yeah, of course.
And they won the championship against the Philadelphia Union, and quite honestly, one of the best sporting events I've ever seen in my life. So it was a great,
Wow.
yeah, for me to like be at that event, write about it, cover it was incredibly awesome and challenging. And it was an immense game. No, sure. Gareth Bale, who I'm sure you know,
I love Gareth Bale.
had the tying header in the 128th minute to send it to penalty kicks. Okay.
Jeez.
So, yeah, when we talk about guys like Bale and Carlos Vela and other international stars playing in MLS, most of it people think it's like a retirement league. This is where these guys come after their best playing days. And there's certainly truth to that. But that narrative is changing. You're seeing top end stars come in with a little bit more meat on the bone. And you're also seeing really young, talented players not go to Europe directly from South America.
I love that guy. What's that guy in LA? The Ivanovic? What's his name?
Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
Yeah.
The guy, I can't watch him. I'm like a groupie of that guy. He cracks me up.
He was
man.
here for 2 years. Now he's back in Italy. He's playing for AC Milan, I think.
How can you let that guy go anywhere? Because it was so funny when I heard the stories about the IKEA thing. And then did you hear the story, Josh? The IKEA?
I don't know. Go ahead.
He was talking to people. He just bought some like $20 million house. And he goes, I'm going to go shopping at IKEA to buy furniture. And the real estate guy goes, rich people don't go to IKEA. And he goes, but smart people do.
Yeah. Zlatan was amazing. Yeah. I got to be around him the 2 years he was here. And he was always a great quote and incredibly absorbing, charismatic, right? He's like one of these athletes that you're talking about, Jesse, that, he can do anything on the field, and he sure did. I mean, the first soccer game I covered was his first game for the Galaxy, and they were playing LAFC, and it was the first time the two teams met, right?
Wow.
So their rivalry is clearly like the most important rivalry in the league. They call it El Tráfico, which I hate as a title, but that's what they call it. And he came onto the field as a substitute in around the 60th minute, and one of the first touches, he hit a volley from 45 yards that scored, right?
Wow.
And the Galaxy were losing 3-0. He comes in, they win 4-3. He gets the header that wins the goal. So like a totally different, unbelievable player.
Yeah.
And so like we've seen these storylines in Los Angeles really take hold, take root. LAFC is now dominating the narrative. They won the last 3 against the Galaxy, the defending champions. They're unbeaten this season. The Galaxy didn't win their first game until last week. Wow. So the things have really shifted. And the Croatian thing, LAFC signed a 20-year-old player named Stipe Bjuk from Croatia. Very talented.
One second.
Talented.
One more time. One more time.
Stipe, like Stipe Miocic.
Okay. Stipe,
and the last, it's B-I-U-K, I think. I always mix it up. It's either B-U-I-K or B-I-U-k.
And he plays for LA Galaxy or
FC.
LAFC, Los Angeles Football Club. Yeah.
Now with Wrexham, obviously, Ryan Reynolds.
That's cool.
Being Ryan Reynolds, I mean, he's a huge star here in North America. Let's be real. Huge in Canada, obviously being Canadian too. But viral stuff going out with them crying after winning and being promoted and stuff. To me, like some people are bashing it, but to me, it promotes the sport here, doesn't it? Isn't that a good thing?
Who is bashing that?
Dude, there's people that bash everything, and you can find you can find
what is there to bash about with that?
No, That's what I think. That's what I say. I'm like, what is, well, it's people that don't know about football going to England and owning a team that has storied history, and how dare they? And you're like, they put him on the map. Who's heard of Wrexham FC before Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah. No one. I mean, I guess they're the 3rd oldest team in the UK.
That's what I mean.
So, people know them, but that's
Not
the one
here.
thing that I really love about global soccer, global football, is the promotion relegation and the ability for teams from different leagues to play with each other and determine who the best.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and in the US, there's this system, this closed system, and so MLS is not designed that way. And one of the major criticisms about MLS is that it's a closed system. They don't have promotion relegation. They have franchises. Yeah. So I think the game would be better off. Again, this goes to my open world view about MMA. It's not just an MMA idea with me. It's just general idea from a competitive standpoint, from everything else. When you know that you have to compete against everybody, that's going to make you better. Yes. And it's not only just because you're competing against everybody, but mentally, you have to be like on top of your game. Otherwise, not only are you going to lose, you're going to drop down levels, right? And you're going to lose like in major ways.
That's right.
So I think the game in North America, especially in the U.S., suffers because we don't use promotion relegation. I don't think, everybody's like, when will U.S. soccer finally emerge? Well, when we probably stop trying to do things our way and we follow how the rest of the world does it, because the rest of the world is actually better in soccer than we are. That'd probably be a good thing. So, there's a lot to like about it. I didn't cover soccer until 2018. I really saw LAFC coming in and creating something. And I was like, I like to be around things just because I got to experience with MMA. You really get to experience from the bottom, right? From when this thing was nothing, and you see the people who were involved with it and creating a business, creating a structure, creating something that people care about is the main thing. And it really felt like LAFC understood the pulse of Los Angeles. And I'm an LA guy born and raised. And so for me, that meant a lot. And to be around it, and like, I'm not a fan. I keep telling the people in the club, and I'm not even joking about this, it's like, I don't care if you win or lose. Like, it doesn't matter to me whether you win or lose. And you get some funny looks because a lot of people in the press room do care if they win or lose.
Yeah.
And you can't be that way if you're a media person. You just can't be that way, right?
No.
There's no cheering in the press box.
You ever watch a concert at the Hollywood Bowl?
Sure.
You have?
Yeah.
How is that on a scale from 1 to 10?
I mean, it's pretty great. It's a pretty great venue, right? Historic venue. I've been in some amazing venues over the years, and that's right up there. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, because that's my next thing. I'm going to go when I go to LA. I want to go to a concert. Totally off topic, but I want to go to the Hollywood Bowl. Yeah.
Yeah, you should do it. You should do it. I think it's not like a rock and roll venue.
It's not. No.
You have these kind of artists who will come in and perform there, but that's not the vibe of the space. I'm not saying don't go see your favorite act just because of that, but whatever it is you'll enjoy, but just like the energy is not like not a place where you're going to go and start like doing mosh pits or whatever you do, Mark. I don't know what you're a tough guy. I don't know.
I'm not a mosh pitter. No. I'm super
Josh,
passive.
we could talk for 3 more hours, but
part 2 coming, everybody. Probably sometime around September, October. Josh Gross, part 2.
We just thank you for your time, but anyone that doesn't follow you yet, you need to follow Josh. Twitter, your main source there?
Only social media. I don't have Facebook or Instagram, so yeah. YAY_YEE.
What are we doing about this check mark though? Is this bananas or what? Is Elon Musk lost his mind or no?
I'm gonna say that I don't care, and I'm just gonna.
You won't purchase. You will not purchase.
No. Yeah, no.
Me
I have
neither.
no interest in that.
Me neither. I will not.
But it's like I think it's weird that people looked at the check mark. If you had it, it was like a social status symbol. Yes. I never once ever looked at it that way. Ever for me, that was not how it was.
How did you look at it? How did you look at it?
That I'm this person who sometimes happens to be on television, or you see my name in print,
that's
or
how
I'm
I
an
looked
author
at it.
of a book,
Yeah.
And like I have an expertise in a certain space, and I am who I say I am. I think there's I always was told that there was a Facebook imposter of me, and I was like, I'm not on Facebook. Don't go. I have nothing to do with Facebook. But I got it literally because my book came out, and I was doing TV spots, and I was like, I should be verified, and that was it.
Wow,
that was it. But that's just my perspective. I think if you're looking at the check mark as some like status symbol, you gotta find another way to sort of feel good about yourself. I think.
Agree.
Yeah.
Well, Josh, thank you so much for joining us. Follow Josh on Twitter. That's all he's got. So there's only one spot to do it. So, but what's the next big event that you're going to be covering?
LAFC is playing the Philadelphia Union in the semifinals of the CONCACAF Champions League. So like you have UEFA Champions League, they're in the semis. Right. This region, the North America, the Caribbean, they do the same thing. Mm-hmm. And so LAFC is playing in the semifinals against the team that they beat in the MLS Cup last year. Oh. So that the first leg, there are 2 legs. The first leg is in Philadelphia on Wednesday. I will not be there for that. But in Los Angeles, I will be there on May 2nd for the second leg, and that should be quite a scene. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm excited. That's a thing, and it's growing so much, especially in LA.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thanks so much, Josh, for joining us. Hey, we appreciate it. Obviously, you have so much knowledge, and don't let anybody tell you that you don't.
No, I don't, and they know it. And hey, Mark, we got to get on the fairway sometime, huh? Well, we got to play. You let me know when you come down to the Hollywood Bowl. I'll take you out golfing down here.
I would love to. How do you play, Josh? Are you good?
I'm all right.
Okay,
Yeah.
Me too. I just got my new golf clubs for the first time. 55 years old. I got a set of custom golf clubs that just arrived 3 days ago, and I've been staring at them in my office. I didn't even put them in the bag yet. I'm just looking at them because
short here, man.
I got graphite shafts. I got Titleist T400 irons, and they're just beautiful, and they actually fit correctly. So it's the first time in my entire life I ever got that.
Yeah, well, you guys have seasons. One of the great things. There's lots of great things about living in LA. There's no golf season. It's 365.
Just
so
golf.
yeah,
awesome.
We have 2 seasons.
Anytime you want to play, you let me know.
Yeah,
that's
we have
so awesome.
Winter and construction season here, so that's about it.
How many times a year do you play?
I play quite a lot, actually. I try to get out at least once a week, maybe twice a week.
Good,
yeah,
good.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
I enjoy it.
In the right spot.
Fantastic.
You know what? I hadn't played in years until the pandemic, and then the pandemic got me out again. But
awesome.
Really great to have reconnected with the game. Yeah.
Fantastic. I have a 50-yard hole in my backyard, so when you come, bring your lob wedge. And we literally have a 50-yard hole in my backyard. And during the Lob Wedge Classic last year, Jesse is the only one to get a hole-in-one.
Very nice, Jesse. Congratulations.
But did not win in the final.
No, I didn't
did
win
not
the
make it to the final.
You get that hole-in-one for life, though.
Yeah.
You own that.
He did.
Well, thanks so much again, Josh, for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for having me. Best of luck with everything. Take care.
See ya.
Bye.
As built, Jesse. As built.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right about that. Well, hey.
Way too much knowledge, and shame on the UFC for banning him, and because he's an actual real journalist. And,
and that's the other thing too, is it pisses us off royally when journalists can't be journalists. It just I don't get it, and that's why I appreciate things like the F1, where they're as much as I hate certain guys saying things about other guys I like, hey, they're allowed to say it. They're allowed to bash a guy.
That's
right. Ted Gravitz for some reason has the hate on for Max, and he says it all the time. He says stupid little comments, but hey, they're allowed, and I like it because they're allowed.
Don't worry, because it'll happen one day when Max will run over with his helmet and smash him over the head with it. They'll allow him to do that too in F1. That's why I like it too, man, because that shit happens there, man. It's just one of those things. Hey guys, don't forget, if it's summertime's coming, you got that shirt off at the beach. Make sure you get that Backscape, Backscape.com, everybody. Please. There's nothing sexy about back hair. Never has been, never will be. Get yourself a Backscape today. And don't forget about Crystal Glass. Crystal Glass, your clear choice for all your glass needs. Go to crystalglass.ca today.
Well, thanks so much. Leafs playing right
and
now.
We're off. You're off next week. You're away.
Yes, away next week.
Yeah.
So we'll play one of the favorite episodes. Just to let you know, Mark, just pulling up some scores here. You'll be happy to know Lightning are up 1-0.
Leaf Nation, here's me thinking of you.
Oh, boy. Leaf Nation. I'm going to challenge Leaf Nation right now. If Leaf Nation, you need to come after Mark if the Oilers lose on Tuesday when he's there.
Oh, go ahead.
He ain't gonna let up on you if you lose tonight.
Listen to me. I don't agree with kicking anybody when they're down. Unless you're a Leaf fan. I will step on your neck, okay? Anybody else, I don't care. And maybe a Dallas Cowboy fan too, I would too. But
there's
those two teams.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks for watching. Thanks, Josh, for joining us. And that's Mark Pavlich. I'm Jesse Martineau. This has been the Me and Jesse podcast. We'll see you next time. Have a good one, everybody.
Thanks for watching the Me and Jesse podcast. Follow us at facebook.com/Me and Jesse.